Good evening, everybody. Let me just say this meeting is being recorded by the Community Preservation Committee. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chair at this time. Seeing none. Okay, I will call the roll and I'll make sure I've got all the notes here. Okay. Donna.
Here.
And Garth walks in just as I'm about to call his name. Garth is here. Sarah.
Here.
Peter.
Present.
Becky.
Here.
Travis.
Here.
Jack.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum. Both Sarah. I did.
Yeah.
I did. Okay. Okay. Good enough. Okay. So we're going to dispense with the minutes, and we'll have them for either the next meeting or for the April meeting. It's a lot of work
There's a
to,
lot of comments.
there's a lot of comments, so there's a lot of work. Okay, so because we've had the public hearing, because we've had numerous opportunities for people to weigh in, we will not have any public comment tonight. This is a deliberation meeting and we really need to move on it. I would like to kind of talk about process a little bit. What I'd like to suggest is that when we get to the point of starting to discuss the actual projects themselves, that we first of all start out with kind of if everybody thinks it's a slam dunk, just put it up there. Don't talk about money, but just try to say, okay, this one's going to, this one's positive and move, and then we can move ahead to those that are more controversial and then go back to talk about money, because, that to have the money discussion in a vacuum for one project as opposed to others might skew the discussion for others later. So, because if we decide we're not going to fund a certain project, then that changes the entire approach. So if that's okay, folks. And then, Christian, would you like to talk about the question of funding?
Yeah, so just as a reminder to everyone and to the public, maybe it was like 9 months ago, the committee decided that they preferred to kind of save up the money that's coming in fiscal year 25 and to only use the money that's remaining in the pot from the flexible fund. So normally every future year for CPC, there will be money set aside for each of the categories, at least 10%. This year it's just the money that's left over in the flexible fund that can be used for any of the project categories. So when you're having your conversations, there's really no money to be devoted to a specific category. You could spend it all in one category, not include another, or you can divide it amongst all of them that you see fit. So.
Any questions about that, or questions about the things that I was mentioning in terms of process?
I guess I would just clarify for the public that we did do the budget process and we did allocate funds into each of those.
Correct.
We did 30% into housing and 10% into others, and that'll be carried forward to next year.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen real quick just so it's part of the meeting.
We weren't skipping that.
No, we're not skipping that
I'm
part.
just saying it can be used for anything.
Yeah, this was the status at the end of fiscal year 24. So you can see money set aside from all the years for the 3 different categories. Then you spent through them when you did your last cycle. And so then this was what was left in the pot, 193,000. And then there's 20,000 from a project that got canceled. So the total is 213,000 that's available, and it's all in the flexible fund.
Okay,
Is that clear to everyone?
does everyone understand?
What we're saying? Yeah.
And everyone looks at me.
No, not just you,
I'm
not just
thinking
you.
about the
Yeah.
new members and the public. So
Right.
every year we have 10% for rec, 10% for housing, 10% for historic, and then the rest is flexible.
Okay.
Right.
This year, we are not bound by that because we're using all flexible. So we don't have to say, okay, how much of our 10% rec is
Yeah.
going to go to this rec project? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so is everybody clear on this? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good. Then let's move ahead. How about starting with the presentation of results and analysis of the survey and the public comments and written feedback and all that kind of good stuff.
All right, so I'll present the first half of this presentation, which analyzes the survey numerical feedback. And then Travis and Sarah analyzed the kind of qualitative responses, the written responses. So this is the survey that the committee put out from February 10th to March 3rd. There was 142 total respondents. We asked respondents what town they were from. The bulk were from Greenfield. There were a few from Franklin County, but not Greenfield. And then there was 6 that were from outside of Franklin County. And then there was an optional question which 90 people responded to, which was asking how they heard about the survey. This maybe is something to talk about when you do your review of the process in the summer. But this is just good info to have on hand. So the survey asked 3 things: whether the respondent thought the project was valuable to the people of Greenfield, whether the respondent thought the project was valuable to them as a citizen, and whether the respondent thought it was a good use of CPA funding. And then they could leave longer comments, which will be in Travis and Sarah's analysis. So the results are here in this spreadsheet. This is everything. I have on the next slide, it'll be a bit more easier to understand chart. But this is in ranked order of the highest score to lowest score. And then on the right-hand side is the number of responses that each project received. People didn't have to respond to every project. They could respond to only 1, or they could respond to all 11. So this is the chart, how it shows how people score the projects. So for each one, the main number in the middle is the average score. But then the line around it is the 25th percentile score and the 75th percentile. So basically the average, the middle 50% of scores are represent that line. And so when a line is narrower, it means people were very focused and pretty much agreed on that everyone was pretty close to the average. Whereas longer lines indicate that there was more diversity in scores. There was a lot more higher scores and lower scores, middling scores. So those scores are kind of across the board. So we can come back to this unless anyone has any questions on it. And so then there's also the committee's score sheet, which asked a few questions which were different than the survey that was put out to the public. There's a question about whether or not it meets city plans, whether the project had multiple funding sources, if the project had alternatives, if it wasn't fully funded, whether or not how quality the application was, whether the project provided evidence of community support, how thorough the planning was, if it was beneficial to the community, if it enhanced health, nature, or improved worker educational environment, whether the project is innovative. And then there's a 3-point yes or no bonus question, whether the project serves an underserved or marginalized population. And so the committee submitted all their score sheets to me. And here's how those average scores played out. And then I made a very similar chart for the committee scores, which is basically the same thing, except for the middle score is still the average, but then the top and bottom is not like any kind of percentile. It's just the highest score from a committee member and the lowest score. But it's the same concept. If the line is smaller, it means everyone kind of agreed. If it's farther apart, it means that there was a greater diversity of the scores. And so then this is how it kind of plays out, where all of you put it on your rankings versus how the public ranked it on the survey. There'll be one more slide at the very end, which has the survey, the committee, and Travis and Sarah's analysis of the written feedback, which will be color coded and easier to understand. But this is here if people wanted to look at just the survey versus the committee. So that was really quick, but that's the content that's in here, and you can look at it more specifically when trying to make your decisions. Ready, Travis?
Yeah. Yeah, so similar to how we've done this in the past, we took all of the written comments and then picked one of these categories that you see on the right here to fit them into. And thanks to Sarah, who took on half of those, or maybe slightly more than half of the.
No, yeah, I had 5, you had 6.
Oh, okay. Well, I couldn't remember which one it was, but took on half of the projects because that's really the most time consuming part, going through every single comment and like assigning them a category. And yeah, so did that for every single written comment, and that's what you see here. A couple of things to point out are you can see in the black is when people said that it was like the highest priority. Some of those comments were saying like this project is the highest priority, or you can see they're all housing, or people said housing is the highest priority, so please fund this. So it kind of went either way with those. Some other things to look at. The like light green that you see is mostly just people saying like, yes, I support this, please fund this. So we just lumped them all into support, you know, like sometimes people would write a whole paragraph, this is why they usually support it, but they didn't like call out anything else, so it was just support. So that's why, you know, you see most of that. You can see that Greenfield Public Library and Pioneer Valley Habitat for Humanity and the pickleball expansion, those were the highest in people saying it was like a good value for the amount of money that they were asking for. You know, a couple of people on those other ones too, but those were the highest ones that were good value according to people. And yeah, the red and dark red are basically people saying either don't fund this project, it's not needed, or fund other projects instead of this one. And we'll say some of those were people saying, don't fund this, fund housing instead, you know? And we all got copies of all the written comments. So, you know, we could have all looked through all the comments already. And this is just kind of summarizing and grouping it so we can see what they all look like together. And if you go to the next slide, so these are the same categories from that last graph. And they got further grouped into whether the comments are positive, kind of mixed, or negative. This is, you know, this is open to interpretation, I guess, a little bit, but trying to, you know, do this as cleanly as possible, I guess, and clearly. So if you go to the next slide, so all of those comments from the, you know, all those categories that we saw before, now this is what they look like lumped into either positive, mixed, or negative. And the last chart was showing total number of comments. This one, it's a percentage. So they're all 100%, and you can just see how many percent were positive, how many percent were mixed, and how many were negative. And even from that first graph, I've had these in order left to right from highest percent positive to lowest percent positive.
And Travis, the darks, the purple is.
That's
negative?
Yeah, those are
Okay,
negative. So those were the ones that, Kristen, if you go back. So those are the ones that were either people saying this should be funded through something other than CPA, this has a low impact, it's too expensive, fund other projects, or it's not needed. Okay, so that's what the purplish red color is, whatever that is. So yeah, any other questions on that? And then
for doing that.
then going on from there, just for fun, I don't think these are that useful really. I made like a word cloud of the comments for each of the projects. And it's kind of interesting, you know, need. I don't know. There's a lot here, so I don't think we're really gonna like pull anything out of it, but it was just kind of interesting.
I was wondering about this, like, if the words are bigger, does that mean more people said it? Is
Yeah,
that what we're looking
the
at
bigger the word, the more times it was used among all the comments.
Okay.
Yeah, so like the names of the projects, obviously, you know, have the biggest. But yeah, so that's those are just those fun word cloud for each of those.
Look at you with extra time while the baby's. Perfect.
And then, yeah, this is what we were looking at earlier, the survey rank, where we rank things. And then comment rank is, the rank is based on the percent positive.
Mhm.
So rank 1 was the one that had the highest percent positive. 11 is the lowest percent positive. And then you can see how those, it's interesting that all the 6s are lined up. And it's mainly blue above and red below.
Yeah.
Except for the library and.
Library.
So that's what we got.
Are there questions that anyone has about anything you've seen? Do you want to go back and look at one of the charts, all that kind of thing?
Does anyone have it printed out for Wisty? In case.
I happen to have everything.
I'm so
except for-
sorry.
No, no problem. I just know you love the charts.
I do love.
I know, there you go.
I'll go back to the two main ones, that I made whiskey. You got the tail end of Travis's stuff. These are the project, survey scores. So this is the numerical feedback people gave us on the survey when they were ranking things out of 5. So there's the 3 questions out of 5, and then I average. If they said 5, 5, 5, the average would be a 5 for that person, and then all of those are averaged together. So you can see just like going from highest to lowest, it goes Noble Home, to the Housing Authority projects, Pioneer Valley, Habitat, then Housing Authority, Franklin County Agricultural Society, the library, and then it takes a bit of a step down, and then it's pickleball, Connecticut River Conservancy, and the rec department. And then the lines around them, around the average scores, basically indicate where the middle 50% of scores were. So if the line is much longer, it means there was a greater variety of scores. There was a lot of less agreement amongst the respondents. So a small, for example, Noble Home, almost all the scores were clustered at the top. Whereas for like the pickleball projects, it's a lot of 5s, but also a lot of 1s, 2s, and 3s. And then I made the same chart for the committee's score sheets. Which in this case, the top number is the highest score for many of us, and the bottom score is the lowest score for many of us being you guys. I didn't fill out a sheet.
One of the things.
By we, I
that-
mean you.
Yes.
One of the things that we don't necessarily know is, can we go back to, let's see, like the general, like number of votes, or how many people voted for it? Okay, number of responses. Like, we do not know, of the 71 people that rated the Noble Home, how many of them rated other things as well?
Correct.
And
They were
do
just
we, like,
just there for no
have,
point.
do we know, like, overall, okay, so 142 people responded.
So yeah, about half of them responded to the Noble Home section of the survey.
Yeah,
Whereas about like a third responded to the recreation department.
right. So I just want to point out that that's one of the unknowns that we kind of deal with, is like, did all of those 71, like, did they respond to anything else but that? Because people can rate they can have a pet and they can rate that one without going through all of them.
I can do that next year if you want, like the percentage of respondents that only responded to this project, if that's helpful to you.
You know,
I don't know if that's helpful or if it doesn't really mean much, like someone scored it, so.
yeah, I don't know, but that's something to
Yeah.
consider in the future, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'd have to assume that, many of those are specific, like someone sends out an email blast.
Yeah,
Anybody interested in the Noble Home, or, anybody on that thing.
right,
I know the fairgrounds did that
yeah,
in previous
Right.
cycles, like, hey,
Yeah.
vote for us on this.
yeah, yeah,
This thing, and like, so, maybe people like end up clicking through and going to a number of them.
yeah,
So it's, it's certainly a data point,
yeah,
but like, as with all public comments, right, it's like, we have to let them talk. We don't have to do what they say.
yeah, yeah.
So any other questions or comments about either from Peter or Jack around? Go ahead.
Is this normal, 142 responded? I mean,
So last year it was, I think, just under, I think it was 96. The first year it was over 300. But that was kind of what Donna was speaking to. There was quite a few that came from one of the applicants and they were only responding to the one project. This year, compared to that, at least definitely compared to that first year, there was a lot more people filling out for more than one.
So this also kind of serves as a gauge of the level of noise. Generally speaking, how much talking is happening about what specific issues? Kind of
Yeah.
almost like a steam valve for what's going on behind the surface.
Also that there are people who are committed to that project and, and so they have a vested interest and they may not care about any other projects, but they really do care about this one. So it's a weighted thing, on the one hand, yeah, it would have been nice if they had looked at some of the other projects and made some comments, but the fact is they do have interest and concern about those projects and wanted to put their ideas forward.
I will say, having done surveys and been listening to coworkers do surveys for the city for almost 4 years now, getting 142 people to respond to a survey of this density and how many questions they can respond to is pretty good.
Pretty good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Peter, Jack, do you have any questions or comments that you would like to make?
I just wanted to mention that as the housing authority, I didn't score the 3 projects
yep.
that I'm related to. So just for transparency's sake, I had no input on those 3 projects and plan to abstain as you guys are talking about them, just so the public is aware.
Yep. I was going to
Great.
mention
Thank
that,
you,
but
Jack.
forgot. Thank you, Jack.
Peter, anything?
I do not at this time.
Okay. All right, so are people comfortable with this? We can come back to this. We can use it as we're talking about the projects themselves. But in the meantime, maybe move on to the proposed conditions. And Christine, can you talk a little bit about how that all happened and
Yep. So during your first year of CPA funding, you received a recommendation from Stewart at the Community Preservation Coalition that when you're funding projects, you should place some specific conditions on them to make sure that they follow the CPA rules. And if there's anything on top of kind of what's already in the usual grant agreement that they sign, that you need to add in there to make sure that everything is nice and clean. So these are some template conditions that me and Susan drafted together. And it's kind of pretty boilerplate, making like a lot of them, it's like kind of implied that if you're getting CPA funding, you follow CPA law, but making sure it's stated in there anyway. The only kind of 2 that are a little bit unusual is this first one, the Connecticut River Conservancy. The first one, it says the grantee agrees to repay the full amount of the CPA award if the property is sold within 10 years of the approval of the project by city council. The reason why that one's in there, I reached out to Stewart Sagamore. Typically for a historical preservation project, the thing you try and get out of the applicant in exchange for the CPA dollars is a historical preservation restriction. But as listed in their application, and in the registry of deeds, this property already has a full-blown preservation restriction on it with the state of Massachusetts. So having the city hold a preservation restriction would be pretty much pointless. And I don't even know if you even could add a second preservation restriction that does the exact same thing. So I reached out to Stewart about that question, like what can we do instead? And the best recommendation he had was to add this, where if the property is sold, you get paid back the full amount of the CPA award. So that protects your investment, gives you some benefit out of it. The other thing that he suggested, which I don't have listed here, is you can like request the city to be able to use the space, because he saw that there was like meeting rooms getting created, but also the CPA funds that you're going to be allocating to the project for more for the exterior and aren't for creating the meeting rooms. So he didn't know that when he said that. But you could put that in there. But all these conditions have been reviewed by the applicants. I sent them via email, and all of them responded to me. But the Connecticut River Conservancy did respond to this list and said it was okay. The other one, I guess there's 3. The public library one, I said that The grantee agrees that the documents prepared using the CPA funds will be available to the public during the operating hours of the Greenfield Public Library. That's something that Anna said in her presentation, but that's kind of putting it in stone there, and she said that was completely okay. And the other one is the Noble Home project. Most of this is pretty boilerplate. It's kind of the same language we've used for similar CPA projects the first 2 years. The one that is, let's see, a little bit more unusual and kind of responding to the specific project is number 3. Grantee agrees to repay any CPA funds dispersed for pre-development activities if the project does not receive all necessary approvals, including approval by the Greenfield Planning Board. So basically, this project could do all of its pre-development, but then if it doesn't actually end up being a project, which it seems like some members of the public are concerned about, the money would have to get paid back. And Noah, the applicant, did not get back to me at all on this one. But this is something me and Susan felt was appropriate for this project.
Okay, so basically, I just sort of thought that we wouldn't fund something that didn't already have those approvals. So I guess I'm trying to figure out which is in front here, the cart or the horse.
They are going to be going to the planning board in April.
Yeah,
So really, this is, we're not gonna actually be paying out CPA any money by the time
yeah,
before they would go before the planning board, but this is really just like setting that in stone and like making sure that's the case.
So if they don't get approval by the planning board, either in April or if it goes over until May, by the time we would be dispersing funds, the decision will be made.
right. Well, and also, I mean, with some of these, we are a reimbursement organization, so it would seem that in order for them to do the work, they'd have to get the approval and then they'd do the work and then we would fund them. So even if we granted them money, it would stay in our coffers
Well,
until such time as they made the expenditure.
not necessarily. They could make all the plans well ahead of time, and then go to the planning board. It just depends on their timeline. It seems
Yeah.
like they're going to the planning board before they're gonna end up using the CPA money.
And the gray water collection request was for pre-development work or was for
It
the?
is for pre-development work. It's for creating the design for the gray water.
And I guess I'll just also add that other projects have come before us without having full permissions in place, including the new pickleball courts. The first time we gave them money, they didn't have any permitting done. Now they have permitting done through the Conservation Commission, at least I know, to go forward. But that was one, that's an example I know just off the top of my head.
Yeah, this exact thing we're talking about right now was a conversation what we had when we talked about these conditions last year, for the Franklin and Maine LLC, I believe the housing that's going in on Main Street, the second floor housing and going to that parking lot, whether or not to have a condition in there that required the approval, and you didn't end up including it. So this one differs from that one, but it's also a different project. So
So we are allowed to do
you
pre-development.
you can fund pre-development without putting any condition that that's not statutory. But me and Susan thought it was prudent for this project.
Any questions or comments on any of these?
Good, thank you for
Yeah.
working on that.
Peter, Jack, any questions that you might have? No? No? Okay. All right. Then let's go back to that chart, because I think we need the chart. Okay, and let's start talking. Are there any projects that you think, well, we're going to try to do this is by consensus, unless if somebody says no to this, then that goes into the part, we have to discuss this project further. But are there projects that you feel we're definitely going to fund, and this is just kind of a yes, no, yes, we're going to fund it. We won't talk about how much. So I'm open to anybody. Go ahead.
I mean, I can make all the motions, but it feels to me like we would do all the housing authority and the Pioneer Valley Habitat for Humanity.
Okay, just
They're
vote.
pretty clear between like all the.
They're all blue.
They're all pretty
Mhm.
solid, not too much variability. I mean, the sum total is what, 30, 40, 64,
Okay.
66.
But we're not going to talk about money now, so we'll leave that until later. But in terms of projects, do people agree with that? Are there any dissent? Is there any dissent on any of those?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so those three. Or rather four, excuse me. Okay, all right.
Okay. I have a question about the pickleball enhancements at the current now when we had the meeting and spoke with the grant writer or applicant, he said he was gonna change his,
We asked him to give us an updated budget. And I have not.
have we seen anything to
Yeah.
like have like something?
Yeah, Mike's in the
To actually
meeting.
vote on?
I don't think you ever sent, I never saw anything from you, Mike.
I tried to find the exact documents you were talking about to amend them, and I couldn't find it and I failed to do that.
Okay, so I'm kind of feeling like with that one, we don't really have something to vote on because we don't have a proposition that is up to date.
What are
We
folks?
would be voting on the original application.
Right, we would
Right.
be voting on the original, but he was looking at scaling it back, so I don't even know what we
He
would.
was taking it away if the other pickleball request
No,
was
we
granted.
were still looking for funding for the solar project, for
Oh, right.
basically the shade structure in the bench.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm just confused because I don't have like a proposal in front of me. It's just a part. I mean, we're talking about voting for a part of a proposal.
Yeah, it's,
Right.
Okay.
yeah,
We can do math.
it would be in the past when something has changed to this degree, because I know the first year, the fairgrounds, I believe, submitted an amended application pretty late in the process. They submitted an amended application. Submitting this to city council with a pretty reduced scope and budget would be, because they'll be voting on like the application. The application says all these things, but then you're not gonna, this money's not being spent on those things, so it's a bit of a gray area.
Okay,
Well, also though, I mean, we can recommend partial funding for a project,
Mhm.
right? So couldn't we specifically say we're recommending partial funding for the bench and the shade structure?
You have to type.
That would have to be like in our condition,
Mhm.
if we wanted to do it that way.
right, right. So is there consensus to take this out, to leave it in and talk about it? What do folks want to do?
I would like to proactively ask you to consider partial funding.
Okay, thanks, Mike. In terms of the committee, where do we want to go with this? Do we want to keep it and have a discussion about it?
Can we save this one for,
Okay,
so we can see if we can get through the other ones first?
sure. Yep. Okay. Are there any others that we think are slam dunks and that we know we're going to fund, just so we have that out of the way?
I felt like the library one was highly rated from the committee. Can we see just the committee graph again, Christian?
Yeah, that one was one that I think if you do the math, that's probably the biggest difference between the lowest score and the highest score. I don't know who the lowest score and highest scores are. Whoever here probably knows it's them, but yes.
Oh, disregard. My memory is not serving me correctly.
Okay,
That's the one I was gonna propose, unless anyone disagrees. I was gonna propose that one as being one that gets funded, but someone can
Okay.
speak up and say no.
does anyone have a strong feeling that that should not be funded
Or that we need to.
Or that
discuss
we
it
need
more.
to discuss it more.
I do not have, I would like to see that.
Yeah,
Okay, then let's put it in the,
in the green.
in the category, okay. Oh, the middle ones.
The low value.
Yes, yep, okay. All right, so that leaves us with Noble Home, the fairgrounds, pickleball, both of them, the Connecticut River Conservancy, and the rec department. What would you like to start with?
I'll start with
Sure.
Noble Home. I feel like what they're wanting to do with the gray water idea is a really important thing for us to be supportive of if all the other pieces come together. It's such an unusual project. It's not been done in Massachusetts. And I'd love to see how that works. And I'd like to think that the community would want to possibly do more of that if it does work out. It's very innovative, and I really appreciated that part of it.
I agree, but one of the questions that I raised with myself, I battled over this for quite a while, was whether or not it's the choice of the Greenfield taxpayer to be the example for the rest of the state. Whether it's the choice for Greenfield, because at the end of the day, Noble Home is gonna get the kudos for this project. It's not gonna be Greenfield that gets put on the map. It won't-
Homes will be in Greenfield. So
Yes, but that's maybe 24, to say 24 people live in those houses, right? That's just 24 people and maybe some word of mouth. But at the end of the day, it's not going to really come back to Greenfield in a way that I think Noble Home says that it will.
Well, for me, I mean, I think I feel like we're talking about like two different things, you know, it's in the housing category, but it's more of like an innovation, almost conservation kind of project, you know, it's with the ecology piece of it. I think the thing that has me concerned was I felt that the public comment was pretty persuasive. Like when you looked at the size of these actual units for the price, it didn't feel like a bargain or like very affordable. I mean, when you 400 square feet, 500 square feet is like really tiny, you know? So, and, you know, if we're looking at between $150,000 to $200,000 for something that small, that doesn't feel like affordable housing to me. So I guess from the housing end of things, I love it on the innovation end of things, but on the housing end of things, I'm really struggling.
Other thoughts?
My biggest concern was the affordability piece. So looking at 100% of the area and median income, it's going to be difficult for what it's going to be priced at and the cost of construction. I think this could be a really great project and something that we should support. I just don't know if it's ready for funding at this time from us. During the presentation, I had asked some questions about like cost, and I don't know that it was ever really resolved. And I felt like the public also felt there's just a lot of unknown variables at this point. I do think eventually this could be a great investment. I'm just not sure if it's ready.
It's fair.
Peter?
I sort of echo the same sentiment that it could be a great project. There's just a lot of untied ends there.
Other thoughts?
I agree, it's a iffy-ish project overall, and there is no affordability anywhere for anything. Like you can't have a box in a yard that's actually affordable given the area median income, because the median income suck. Right, I've been earning $17 to $19 an hour for 10 hours a week for the last 5 years, right? It's not a it's not a functional wage for most things around here. I appreciate that it's an innovative project, and we can fund pre-development, and given that one of the conditions is it gets paid back, whether that happens if the whole project goes bust, a little fuzzy. But it seems like a kind of interesting thing to try to invest in, be like, could there be an actual small development gray water thing in Greenfield? And to your point, I think that actually would be, whether that brings a bunch of money to Greenfield, I don't think so. But it would be kind of cool to be like, oh, we actually managed to get through the permitting, and it wasn't just someone being like, hey, I just put my dishwasher into my toilet, or just dumped everything out the back. I've looked at a number of houses in Williamsburg when we were first moving out here, and the sink just went onto the yard. It's amazing. It's a great water system. So I think given the restrictions we'd put on it, I'd be tempted to do it as a can they make it work? And if they can't, in theory, we get the money back.
Other thoughts?
Well, I'm curious about the project too. Let's say that it is affordable, to be located in a woodland area. Even its location is very unique. And again, it's almost like it's experimental. And it makes me curious. Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel a bit experimental. And then I guess I also, as Sarah said, we're spending the taxpayer dollar here. So we have to think about, we have to consider that, how many taxpayers would be psyched about having their money spent this way. I mean, according to the survey, it looks like people are okay with it. Based on what we heard at the public hearing, people did not seem so okay with it. So that's another, thing that I'm struggling with over here.
Sarah?
I think the experimental thing is what it falls back on for me, because not only do you have to guarantee a certain level of affordability, but then you have to continue to maintain the conditions of the people who live in those facilities. How can you guarantee that they're going to use the correct detergent? How can you guarantee as prices go up and things change that Tide isn't going to be cheaper than Nature's Own or whatever brand it is, the organic, how can you guarantee that those materials will be affordable to the people in the affordable housing unit, which is a little beyond the scope of the application, but it's just something to consider. It's one of the things that's building this project. There's so many things at stake. When you say, oh, it's experimental, the concept is great, it's fantastic. And I'm so happy that everyone from the committee and the public was very open to the ecological ramification. But for me, the fact that it is experimental, that there are so many moving parts, is something that I didn't feel comfortable putting my rubber stamp on behind, because it's taxpayer funded. That's kind of where I sit on it.
Yeah, that's true, because there are a lot of conditions that the people themselves that live in the houses have to comply with for it to work.
For me, I'm concerned about making sure that this truly is affordable. That since we're talking about it in terms of housing, as much as the experimental and the conservation aspects of this are very appealing. If this project cannot be made affordable at 100% AMI or less, then we're in a situation where that money has to come back to us. And I'm hoping that that's possible. But if it becomes a project where the apartments become so small that that's the only way they can be made affordable in terms of building costs, et cetera, especially now that we've got 25% tariffs on things like lumber, I am not, I'm hesitant to say this is great. I love the idea. It is not a question of the idea. It's a question of does it scan? And I'm not sure about that.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, do we want to vote on this now or do we want to come back to it? Because I see there's a lot of on one hand, on the other hand here. So do we want to wait on it and come back to it after we've had discussion of other things? Or do you want to vote on it now? It's up to you.
I also was wondering, so I question the affordability a lot, and this is a housing project that came to us. And so I think whether or not we like the idea or the experimental nature of what they're doing, it's to produce housing, which is what the committee's goal is, and that what we're using the taxpayers' money for. And that part wasn't sold to me as someone who is daily looking to develop housing and running the numbers. I didn't hear those answers. In order to get something this affordable based on the construction cost, you already have to be with a plan of I'm getting X amount of money from the state. We're going for tax credits to fund this. And I didn't hear any of that. And so part of me is wondering perhaps we invite them to the next meeting to answer questions and talk about what is the actual square footage of the condo that they're proposing? Where are they? What are they bringing to the planning board rather than just writing it off on it being experimental? Because I don't know that I truly can make a decision for the project. And I hate voting against a housing project, but I'm just not confident with the presentation we were given. And that was before we heard the public comment, which I know their voices who showed up were vocal, and that's what they do. And so I also try to factor that in, as I think we all need to do that. It's usually the folks with negative comments who show up and respond to these things. So it's a lot of weighing both.
That makes, all these comments make, so I think we should vote on it.
Yeah, I agree because I think that there's always next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard two comments that we should vote on it now. Other.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that
Yes.
that we decline the Noble Homes proposal this year.
Second.
Second, okay.
It has to be by consent, everybody has to.
No, it doesn't. The consensus was just how we were going to, if we had we knew we had some that we were going to definitely support.
Yeah,
Just
now-
that-
now we-
right, now we vote. Okay, all right, let me get my little list here and we'll go through this. Okay. Donna,
Yes.
You're voting,
Yes,
you're
yes.
voting to decline.
Yes, to decline.
decline the funding. Okay,
Yes.
yes is to decline the funding. Wisty,
Yes, to decline the funding.
Garth,
No,
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
No,
Travis,
Yes.
Jack,
Abstain.
and I am a yes. So that, Sarah, what do we have?
7, 8, 9, that's 9. 2, 3. 6 yeses,
Okay.
one
2
abstain.
noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay, so it passes as, and I think that we should say to them, come back. Because I think there was enough interest in the project overall that we want them to come back.
Yeah, and
maybe
that's,
it's
you know,
something more directly housing related other than gray water.
One thing I just want to remind the committee of that some other CPCs have utilized, but this committee has not really had the opportunity to yet, is to kind of take special cases and look at them outside of the regular funding cycle timeline. So for example, things change and this goes through the planning board and things become clearer and the applicant asks to come back to the table, you could consider that request.
Okay.
Just something to consider.
Okay,
Thank you, Chris.
thank you, that's very helpful. Okay, so, Connecticut River Conservancy courthouse rehabilitation. What do folks think? Remember the number, don't worry about the number right now, worry about whether you think the project should be funded or not.
I think it should be at least partially funded. And I know it's a historical project that hurts my heart, but the benefit will not stay in Greenfield. It'll benefit the Connecticut River, the whole matrix, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. It benefits everybody and it's not just on the Greenfield taxpayer, I don't believe. Especially where they have such a reach, they could pull in funding from other sources. Is the building in Greenfield? Yes, we should partially fund it for that reason, but to say that we owe them all the money, I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think if we can make it work, cool, let's fund all of it, but I will put that out that I'm
Right.
partial funding.
And this, they have money from other sources.
Yes.
Yes.
I think most of it's from other
Yeah,
sources.
yeah. Is that what you want?
As far as the economic impact, we could also argue that other people will come here and spend money on our Greenfields hotels and Greenfield restaurants and Greenfield downtown, which is great. But that said, the benefiting them for the work that they do is not necessarily the purview. It's literally like the room that we're, it's the reason for the application is to build a community space for the nonprofits, which does not always necessarily guarantee direct benefit to Greenfield. Because it could be nonprofits from anywhere, because they're always looking for places to shelter, basically, and to go and have their meetings. So even if they have that meeting space and they're coming down here to spend money at our hotels, it might not be a nonprofit activity occurring in Greenfield that they're discussing. And it might be a little bit wishy-washy about direct benefit.
I think it's important to recognize that what we're talking about is dealing with the windows in that room. So we're not even talking about the whole room. We're just talking about the windows and some related.
It's just as a historic project, it's irrelevant
Right.
whether it's CRC,
Right.
honestly, or
Right.
not. Like, we funded the cornices or
Exactly.
Right.
offered to fund the cornices and a bunch of things for for-profit landlords downtown.
Yep.
Right.
Given that, like, I have problems with the CRC, I have problems with historic stuff in general. That said, if we're gonna do all those, I would say we might as well do this one too. Like it's on that, like, the super tough stretch of, Bank Row with the gazillion dollars into the pit of the First National Bank and everything else. So, like, having that building at least, and it's at least owned by a nonprofit that's interested in staying here and interested in doing work in the area, seems pretty good. In terms of the amount, I don't have a particular problem one way or another.
Okay. Other comments?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I see it solely as preserving a historical building downtown. The facade, right on the square in the middle of town. Like the meeting room and stuff, that doesn't really have anything to do with what we're funding. Like it's in there because that's what they want to do after, but to me, it's just all like, is this gonna make downtown Greenfield look better and preserve a historical building downtown? For the people in Greenfield to see and enjoy and, continue into the future, so. So I'm for that, I guess, so. That wasn't clear, but yeah.
Right. I feel like Jordy probably got a bunch of tax credits to fix up the other buildings, right?
Mhm.
Probably got 100,000 from the state. Like, it's not, Greenfield tax. It's not my $37 added to my my property tax, but came out of something that we paid into.
Other comments? Anyone else?
I'll
John?
just I'll say that this is a preservation project that I support. I think it, anytime we could help preserve the buildings, we should try to support it. So, and it seemed like they were prepared. They have other funding sources. I think they'll make use of the money and it will ultimately serve the community potentially a little bit more than some of the other preservation work we might do. So I think it's a win.
Okay, other comments? Anyone else?
I guess just building on that, I will say that it is a very comprehensive, complete and well planned out and, all of that. So I think that does inspire confidence as well, compared to some other projects that we get.
Are we ready to vote on it? Okay, I entertain a motion.
Motion to fund the Connecticut River Conservancy's project to restore their building on Main Street, on Big Grove. I move to recommend full funding from the undesignated fund for the Connecticut River Conservancy on the conditions that listed in the document.
We're not doing the money yet. We're not doing the.
Fund them, period.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I mean, you don't need to do a motion at this point then.
Then we.
Yeah, no, we're
Okay.
just moving. it
Okay.
forward.
I'm just moving it
We're
forward.
good. Let's
We're-
talk.
Okay, so
Put it on the
we're
spreadsheet.
moving it forward. Okay, good enough. All right.
Did we
Fairground,
on it that we're moving it forward, or is everybody?
there's kind of a general consensus that we're moving it forward. But if you want to vote on it, we can vote on it, if you think that's important to do right now.
Wouldn't we wait till we have?
Or do we want to wait until we deal with the money?
Yeah. Doesn't that make more sense?
Yeah,
Okay, and we
Unless
can,
it's a
yeah,
yes or
okay.
no, or-
All right. What was it we were talking about? Habitat, Housing Authority. The fairgrounds.
It's 30.
They're- came in right in the middle.
This is white, this is, it's not whitewash, but it's painting the barns is what we're talking about
Right,
here.
sandblasting. painting.
Right, sandblasting, painting the barns.
Right. I mean, they have a pretty good track record. They do this stuff. Is it an exciting project? Obviously not.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, it's a very safe, basic project. It's historical-ish. They do stuff. They're gonna get it done.
It'll look nice for the Green
It'll
River
look-
Festival.
Yeah, right,
Right.
right.
Right. It's a couple folks camping out under there. I'll be very happy that there's not like stuff dropping
And
on
the
them.
cows will be happier.
Right.
Yeah,
Happy cows.
happy cows. Are there other comments on this?
Yeah, I think that, and I haven't gone to the fair for the last several years even. But I think that taking care of those fairgrounds and for the agricultural part, that it really addresses a lot of the community that might not do some of the other. I think it makes it more holistic for who we are responding. Yeah. And those poor barns.
Say it was quite something that he tried to historically accurately whitewash. Cause he went back and forth with the historical commission a little bit about the best methods to do that. And he came up with a really cost-effective, high return method, I think, which is not accurate, but just as good to the naked eye. So it's, it preserves the historic look without being particularly accurate, which is kind of at this point the same thing. So that was good. Kudos for effort.
I'm just gonna point out that we're an hour in here and we
Right.
haven't even started allocating money, so I
Right.
think we need to move things along, people.
Okay. All right. So is there agreement that we're going to move this forward? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move it forward. Then what else we have? We have pickleball. Let's deal with pickleball. Shall we start with,
Pickleball on the rec.
pickleball and rec. So that's really what we're, okay. Pickleball, the expansion. Let's deal with that. What do folks think?
I just wonder about the likelihood of them getting the park grants that they need to get in order to move this forward at all. given current political.
Oh, right. Well, it is a state funding, but, it's also reliant on, their own fundraising, which they have been diligently doing, and on, getting funded from capital. And I don't know if that vote has gone down
It has
yet.
gone down. They did not vote for it.
They did, okay.
That makes it difficult.
That makes it really difficult. I mean, my understanding of this is it's really sort of like bankrolling some, sort of like socking away some money and support with the idea that it would roll over, if they weren't able to get these other pieces. Because I know that the park grant, I believe that those are opening up like in the next month or so. But if there's no match from capital, then I just don't see how it's gonna move anywhere.
Right.
Well, what do you mean when you say capital, like the city's budget?
Park grant requires a match from the city
They
and
asked,
from the capital
they
and
asked for $250,000
Right.
from city capital. funding.
city capital.
That was-
And so
It
without,
needs 25%
right,
local
so,
match.
Yeah,
or
so
25 to
without that, they can't go for the park grant because it's going to be rejected. So I guess the question, with that information, the question becomes, do we want to vote it now and kind of hold it for, say you've got 3 years, if you can do it over the next 3 years, this money will be available to you? And think about it in that context as opposed to you're going to be going for the park grant this year and you need that money as part of your match.
right.
So that's the question at hand.
I feel like the hard part with that is that if they got capital funding, the capital funding could sit in account for an indefinite amount of time, whereas if our money does have a time limit, so
Right.
it feels like the CPA money should be utilized closer to when they know they're actually gonna, like even apply for the park grant.
So we could tell them to come back next year, basically.
Like we're the last 5% rather than
Yeah.
the first 5%.
Mhm.
Other thoughts? Peter, Jack?
I share the wait and come back last 5% feeling.
I moved to decline funding for the pickleball expansion project this year.
There's a second.
Second,
Okay, I will do all the roll. Okay. Donna,
Yes,
Wisty,
Yes,
Garth,
yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. So we've got two that we say come back. Not no forever, just come back. Okay, so in terms of the pickleball enhancements, where are we on that issue? Since we know we don't have a full proposal that we can present. We don't have an augmented proposal that we, from the committee in terms of what exactly the costs are going to be.
Peter's got his hand up.
Peter, go ahead.
I would move to decline. Just based on it's the lowest score between the committee and the comment rank. It didn't do well on the survey. It's incomplete. Give them some comments. They can watch the meeting and resubmit next year.
And you'll second that? Okay. Is there more discussion on this before we move forward on a vote? Okay, then I'll call the roll. All right. Donna,
Yes,
Wisty,
yes,
Garth,
No,
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
No.
Travis,
Yes.
Jack,
No.
and I'm a no. Okay, so what is our
4 to 5.
4 to 5.
45?
In fact, which way?
5 to 4, yes to decline.
Okay, so so it is being declined. at this
Decline
point.
passes.
Decline, okay.
Then there was a yes to the no.
Yes, no, okay. All right, and Greenfield Recreation, the Hillside Park STEM installation. What do folks think?
I would like to keep this on the docket.
Okay,
I agree. It didn't score super well. But it seems like a useful thing to try to keep bumping up Hillside Park. We've invested previous money in there and trying to make that a real showpiece.
okay, Jack, did you want to say something?
I don't have the motion language in front of me, but I was hoping to just move forward with this one.
This is the last in the category of recreation, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And we're required to give some money to recreation.
Oh,
Not this
No,
year.
not this year.
I don't know if you were here.
Okay,
when I
fine,
talked about
I
it.
didn't know.
Yeah, just to reiterate, in case anyone else joined late online, that we're using up the leftover money that's in the flexible fund that can be used for any of the three categories that's left over from the first 3 fiscal years of CPA. Starting next fiscal year, it'll be very regular, where there's 10% or more set aside for the project.
Can you go back to the comments? The survey results, I'm sorry, I can't.
The last, this one?
That was the public and survey, okay.
I just have concerns about this one that, I don't know, it just feels to me like they're gonna get damaged and they're maybe gonna get used a little bit and then they'll get damaged and then they'll just be sitting there damaged for a while. It's just a feeling I have that that's what's gonna happen with, like, they seem like maybe not the most durable thing, like a big metal park structure is like, durable equipment, and this, I don't know, it just seems like it's more vulnerable.
Right.
To damage.
Plastic things on a board in a park.
Yeah.
Eventually it becomes just broken plastic
And a lot of,
scattered around a board on a park.
CPA stuff, it's like, how do we get like long-term benefit out of like these CPA funds? And to me, it seems like it might end up being like a short, like we funded like concrete recreation things. Those will probably stay around for a while, but I don't know. That's just a concern that I have on this one.
And that there wasn't any kind of warranty on it from the company was a kind of a deterrent for me. But yes, here you spend $32,000 and then if it breaks, it's broken. Sorry.
Could we then decide just to do one of the installations and not all three?
We can. Once
We can decide to partially fund,
Yeah.
yes, but I think that right now we're figuring out whether
it moves forward to get those questions.
Fair.
Okay, any other comments around this? Okay, do I have a motion one way or the other to move forward or not?
I think we should.
You think we should? Okay, so we've got a motion to move forward with this. Second, okay. I will go through the roll. All right,
I think this is the only, sorry, I think this is the only project where we're voting to move forward. I don't think we voted to move forward on the other.
Yeah.
yeah, we've done, okay, yeah, we voted to decline, you're right. Okay, so then we'll move forward and we'll see where things stand.
Yeah, if someone doesn't want it to happen at all, they'd vote no when you.
when
Right,
it's time.
right, when we do, okay.
All right.
So we moving forward, so we have so those. So we have the Connecticut River Conservancy. Okay.
Madam Chair,
We do,
can I start making motions?
you can start making any motion you want.
Can we make it a little bigger?
I was about to try and do, but.
Oh.
Well, there we go.
So, I mean, it turns out if we fund everything to their full amount, right, it's
more than-
158,000.
So,
So
Madam.
we could just fund everything unless we want to be partial on it.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to fund $15,000 from the undesignated fund for Habitat for Humanity. This proposal on the list of conditions as earlier.
Do I have a second? Second, okay. Any commentary, any discussion? Okay, here we go. Donna,
Yes.
Wisty.
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay? All right, do I have another motion?
Is there any existing of the list that we haven't denied already? Is there anyone that's adamantly opposed to those? Because I'll make a motion to accept them all.
At the level, at the funding level that they're at? That's the question.
Well, at the funding level they're at, I'd be comfortable with that. It's, if I did the math right, it's $158,162. So that's
I guess I would say I'd prefer to go one by one.
55-ish.
Yeah, it's actually been recommended to take them separately, mainly because of the conditions
That's
aspect.
fine.
Okay,
And
I was
one
just
of the
gonna roll the
things,
conditions, write another motion, but that's fine.
one of the things that was brought up at our public hearing was that there were suggestions that some of these might get funded beyond the ask, which I
That's
believe is
true.
also in our purview.
yeah,
And
So,
yeah, so you said it's 158 and we have two.
we 213.
Okay.
Okay, so let us start, do I have another motion?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
make a motion to fund the Greenfield Public Library $7,000 on their community preservation proposal with the conditions as were stated earlier in this meeting.
Do I have a second? Second with Sarah. Okay, so a vote. Donna,
Yes,
Wisty. Yes. Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, so $7,000 for the library. Okay, next.
I would like to make a motion that we, I need,
Okay,
I move to recommend 25,000 for the rental assistance program. Am I saying this wrong?
Yep,
I move to recommend 25,000 for the rental assistance project on the condition.
With the conditions that are-
Yeah,
okay.
which is
Second.
$10,000 more than was.
okay, then,
Second, we've had a second. Okay, any discussion?
Yeah.
We can't do that.
I don't know if it's a true unknown to me whether or not you can fund more than what's in the application, because the application says we're gonna do X and this is how many dollars we're gonna need to do that. I do not know.
okay, so we were not sure that it's in our purview.
I've never
All right,
raised that question.
so-
Why don't we
Why don't
fully
you
fund, why don't we fully fund and then we can come back to it if we decide to do it. Okay.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to amend the amount to 15,000.
Okay, second?
yeah. second.
Okay, so let's vote on the amendment.
Yes,
Do we agree that the amendment, that the vote should be to recommend 15,000? Let me go through. A yes says that we do. Donna,
yes,
Wisty. Yes. Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
Jack,
Abstain.
and, right, you have to abstain, I'm sorry. And I'm a yes. Okay, moving forward, next.
Oh, that was the motion to amend the motion.
Yeah,
So
I
I
was
got
going to
it.
the amendment, right,
So
right.
the
So
motion now is to
motion
fund
now
for
is to
15,000.
fund at 15,000, sorry. I'm glad other people are keeping track. Okay, any discussion? Okay, Donna,
yes,
Wisty. Yes. Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
Jack is abstaining, and I'm a yes. Okay, next. Do I have another motion?
Motion to fund 32,000 to the recreation department for the STEM install. Incorporating
second?
any required limitations.
Okay,
I'll second.
second, any discussion? Okay, let's move forward. Donna,
Yes,
Wisty. Yes. Garth,
Abstain.
okay, Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Abstain.
Travis,
No.
Jack,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, so that's, we have majority. Okay. Any other motions?
Motion to,
Um,
Go ahead.
no,
There's a motion.
no, I heard somebody else, but
Okay,
motion to accept the Winslow Preservation Project at $18,000 with the list of conditions.
do I have
Second.
okay, this is second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote then. Donna,
yes,
Wisty.
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky.
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
Jack has to abstain. And I'm a yes. Okay,
I recommend $8,000 from the undesignated fund for the Greenfield Housing Authority's proposal for for the Conway Street additional units with any conditions as listed.
do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? Okay, but moving forward then on a vote. Donna,
Yes,
Wisty.
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jack's abstaining, and I'm a yes. Okay, do we have any further motions?
Motion to accept 17,178 for the phase 2 project of the Franklin County Agricultural Society with all applicable restrictions.
Second.
Second, is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a vote. Donna,
yes,
Wisty.
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky.
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, and that just leaves us with the Connecticut River Conservancy. Is there a motion in regard to that?
Motion to approve full funding for the Connecticut River Conservancy with the conditions.
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, moving forward. Donna,
yes,
Wisty.
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
Travis,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay, so. Okay, so what we have is $158,000 that we have, that we plan to expend in regard to the proposals that are before us. We do want to say to those three that we have rejected, that we would like to have discussions with them for the future. This is not a statement of never, this is a statement of there needs to be some work done. Is that agreeable with everyone?
Yes, and I would also add the security deposit and rental assistance fund. We were all interested in funding it more if possible.
If possible.
We can, as Christian said, accept a project outside of our normal funding.
Okay.
So if we wanted to, they could file again quickly and we can approve it again if we
Okay.
all wanted to. That's a thing that
Okay,
can happen.
that's fine. So, Christian, can we check on to make sure that that's possible to do, and it with Stuart, and then if so, we could even take it up at the
Well, at
next
this point, it's definitely possible,
This is
but
okay.
answering the question for the future about
for the future.
adding more into a project like
Yeah,
that, this,
right.
right this moment is a good question to answer.
Right, okay. All right, so,
One thing, just to make note of, the 54,838 is gonna go into the pot for next year.
oh, yes,
Which is great.
which is
Good
great.
to, good to roll over.
Yeah.
And then we'll have
unless
more.
we,
Roll over money and some of that could certainly go to some of the projects that.
Unless we do some sort of interim funding
Correct.
for the people who we weren't quite clear on.
Okay. So with that, we have voted, we have done this, so we're now looking, the next thing on the agenda is fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 2024, and if there are any reports in regard to the fund, that funding. That is,
Nothing major to report. The March 31st is the end of the quarter, so we'll have probably some more updates at the April meeting when I
Okay.
get quarterly reports.
okay. Then I would entertain, yes, ma'am.
We don't have any scheduled meetings unless they're gonna be regularly scheduled outside of the March 27th meeting, correct? They would just the third Thursday of the month?
Yeah, it's a fourth Thursday,
Fourth Thursday?
fourth Thursday of the month.
Okay,
So our next scheduled meeting is for March 27th in this very room at 5:30. And we will have to approve a budget.
Okay.
And if there is anything that comes back between now and then in regard to the proposals that we have rejected, we can have that discussion as well. And if that is acceptable to everyone, so it will probably be a shorter meeting, folks. But if that is acceptable to everyone, then I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and let me go through the roll. Like one last time, once more with feeling. Okay, Donna,
Yes.
Wisty. Yes. Garth,
Yes.
Sarah,
yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky.
Yes.
Travis.
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
and I'm Edith. Okay, so
How
thank you
good
very
is
much.
that?
Meeting is adjourned. I can't believe we did that all in an hour and a half.